Welcome to What the Heck's, your source for Warhammer Underworlds in under 30 changes that kind of made sense anyways. I'm your host, Brian, and with me today is my intrepid co-host, Davy. How you doing, Davy?
I'm doing good. I'm recovered from our weekend of fun.
Yeah, it was awesome. You gave some people the Thriceful Discord Rimewyrm bite taste. I think it caught a lot of people off guard, but that was an excellent time. We had our Q3 event with a World Qualifier ticket. I heard plenty about that as we were leading up to it, and it went off very well. So for today's topic, we're talking about the new FAQ that dropped just before our event. It did fall within the exclusion for the cutoff for new rules, so we did not use it for our event. However, we are going to talk about that today. First, Davey, do you have any community shout-outs for us?
Only that Cinderfall Gaming is still putting out reports, and that's a channel we don't mention all that often, but a YouTube report I think near and dear to my heart is a particular matchup I've actually played quite a bit, which is Molog's Mob versus the Godsworn Hunt. That's a real throwback there. I remember just lobbing Marauders at the giant troll back in the day and watching one or the other explode on contact. So
that's wonderful.
Yeah. So just a reminder that's out there. You should check it out.
Sweet. Can't help a little self-promotion. I'd also encourage you to check out our streams, our VODs from not only if hopefully you caught it live, but you can still catch it if you didn't. We had Skylar and our local Chop on the stream. They were narrating through the top table throughout the event. It was a 4-round event, so there's 4 separate videos, and it was best of 3, and they did an excellent job. Chop is from the 3 Men in a War Game podcast, and he is our local hype man for any and all new games coming out, and he joined us again, and they had a great stream. A little caveat is there were some technical difficulties that we had to work through. It was the first time doing this, so we appreciate you dealing with it live. But the VOD actually came through with a lot better quality. The only unfortunate thing is the first 3 videos did not catch the tail end of the games, except for the final. Luckily, the final got everything. Again, some trial and error there that we learned on the fly. But highly encourage you to check in. That finale was fantastic, and we got a world qualifier now that we will be sending to Worlds.
Yeah, and I think the real draw to that whole set of videos there is the live commentary from Skylar and Chop. That's been the kind of most glowingly reviewed thing by community members who have checked it out so far. I think it's cool. We don't often get that like on the fly live thing. And they you and Skylar kind of put a lot of work into thinking about it. They were in a different room so that their commentary wouldn't be distracting to the players, and they would, discreetly send someone out to kind of make sure they were understanding the board state correctly and all that. And so the amount of effort that went into it, and like you said, it wasn't a perfect execution as far as technology wise, but learned a lot. And I think the next time we go at it, it's going to be even better. And I'm looking forward to that. So I'd look at it and consider it a prototype, I guess.
Absolutely. But they did have a lot of fun doing it. And so any and all commentary about what was good and what can be improved, we'll do it potentially for more events. But we want that feedback so that we know whether or not you want that.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say about that, I think I was just generally impressed by like how much fun those guys seem to be having. Like Chop showed up pretty actually short notice, and I got done and I was thanking him for doing it, and he's like, man, it was just a tremendous amount of fun. I was like, oh, cool. Well, he might have had more fun than I did. I think I was just exhausted and stressed by the end of trying to burn my brain out playing those games. But we'll talk more about that another time, another episode.
Yeah, as we're still buzzing with the energy.
Yeah.
So, jumping into our main topic then?
Yeah, I think so. This is the FAQ errata, right?
Yeah, so we got this FAQ document, and it's been a long time coming. And so we're excited to see some changes. We've had a lot of time to breathe in this meta. Not sure like if Age of Sigmar 4th edition kind of caused some delays, but I think we're all heaping a bunch of responsibility on that.
Yeah.
But either way, we have it now, and there's going to be a new meta change between our Q3 event and Nova. So Nova will be using this, and Davy, you're going to be on the way, so I'd be curious to get your thoughts throughout this, how you think that shapes how you're approaching the difference between your approach between our Q3 event and Nova.
For sure. I think we'll get into those specifics as they come up, but I think the other important thing to mention about this is kind of the first communication we've had about Underworlds in quite a while as well. Since we got that huge drop, it's just been like not just crickets for FAQ errata, but crickets for anything. Like we kind of don't know what's coming up, and it was nice just to be like, hey, they know we're alive, cool.
Right, we can assuage doomsayers.
Yeah. And so yeah, we got something to work with, and I think there's a lot of stuff that generally pretty satisfied with in there. So where do you want to start?
I think we start with the heaviest hits in Breakneck Slaughter. It was our most numerous universal deck at our Q3 event, with 5 out of the 14. And the big hits here come in the objectives with 2 erratas, 1 to Rapid Strike and Eager for the Fight. Dave, you want to break down Rapid Strike for us?
Rapid Strike basically, so it used to be 2 glory. Did you kill as many fighters as there are round numbers so far? So 1 in the first round, so on and so forth.
Pretty it's cash money for aggro.
Yeah, exactly. Fairly reliable. And if you waited until the 3rd round against an elite war abandonment, you had to wipe them out. But against any like 4 fighter and greater, pretty solid and really great into hordes stuff. Like to the extent that they're just. I think I used the term glory pinata before, and just turn basically just a very reliable. Just do what you're doing and keep going.
My Gits just gave that up in the handshake to start the match.
Yeah. The other side sneezed and then they scored Rapid Strike on you. It's basically made into Swift Work, which is an objective. Scores in the end phase if the number of enemy fighters is greater than the round number. So 2 in round 1, 3 in round 2, and 4 in round 3. Which is to say that if you wait until round 3, if it's effectively like dead into 3 fighter warbands, because you have to wipe them out in round 2, can't score it in round 3, and somehow get 2 of them dead in round 1. And I think that just makes the card dead.
That's really rough. And Domitans is really prevalent. Thriceful Discord are around. That's rough.
Yeah, there's an identical one to this, which is called Swift Work, which was in the Farstriders.
Okay, I was wondering where that was.
Yeah, I think that is. I think that maybe made it through. I mean, it's an awful objective. I was going to say nobody has ever taken it, but I'm wrong because I was just reading Fish's article about taking Farstriders to the Tacoma Open, and I think he might have included this objective. I think that one in that specific deck happened as they were kind of play tested against the revamped Sepulchral Guard. Even with their Resurrect, there was still this function of hey, can I kill enough of these small skeletons fast enough that this is doable? But I think in a wide open field where you're not sure what you're going to be, especially one that generally favors 3, 4, maybe 5 fighter warbands right now, it's essentially Forsaken, I would say.
I'll push back and say that now it becomes a meta pick, and if Hold Objective Swarm warbands become the meta, then I think this can be a counterbalance to that and be a meta pick. I still think it's pretty great against decks warbands like Zarveg's Gits, and but currently we don't live in that meta, and so it's a big hit to Rapid Strike here.
I agree with that adjustment. I guess what I'm saying is in the current meta, you just don't take it, and maybe there's a change down the way where you would.
But it does also, it was an auto take, so I think not necessarily unwarranted some attention on this card, but a pretty heavy hit here.
Yeah, I mean, not to spend too much time on just the one card,
Yeah.
but I would be interested if there would have been an option, just make it one glory, or make it one glory unless you scored it in the third end phase, and then it's worth 2 or something. Like some of that modular scoring, I think, lets you find because in the past we would talk about, hey, this objective is too good for 2 glory, not good enough for 1.
Yeah.
And they've really found a way to like, okay, I can make these effectively 1.5 glory objectives or whatever,
Yeah.
which I thought was really clever.
Yeah, there might have been some middle ground here. Maybe this might be a over adjustment and then walk it back later, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, Eager for the Fight, also a pretty reliable 2 glory end phase for
Mm-hmm.
aggro war bands.
Mm-hmm.
Previously, all of your fighters be within 2 hexes of an enemy fighter and or have a charge token.
Mm-hmm.
Now that has changed to score this in an end phase if each surviving friendly fighter has 1 or more charge tokens or is within 2 hexes of an enemy fighter, and each surviving friendly fighter is not in your territory.
Yeah.
So full invade and be close,
yeah,
or all have charge tokens.
Yeah.
I think that's automatically not great for any warband that's starting out with 5 or more fighters. But I think if you're 4 or less, you can at least work with the first condition of getting 4 charge tokens. But if your opponent's going to longboard you out to keep you at bay, then this is hard round 1. I don't think this is as hard of a hit as Rapid Strike.
No.
But I think it's a deserved hit because the previous iteration was just auto.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was like some real corner case, counterplay where can I figure out how to keep one of their fighters from getting a charge off or isolate that fighter? There's just a little bit more now, and I like it. And I think it found a good spot because I think it'll still get taken.
Yeah. But yeah, some big changes to Breakneck Slaughter's scoring, especially with how reliable aggro scoring has become. I know in the past, aggro warbands kind of relied on the bounty versus their end phase scoring, and they were really struggling to make reliable end phase scores add to their glory total. And we've seen a reversal of that. And recently, I've been stunned with how much a aggro warband is able to score compared to like a hold objective, which is normally kind of racing the aggro to like score more than the aggro can score by killing. And Phil has stunned me with how much the Skinner can score. and I'm just like, how much is that from bounty? And it's not the majority of it. And I'm just like, that is incredibly reliable. But he wasn't even using Breakneck Slaughter. And anyway, like aggro's glory totals coming from the days of Beastgrave has been incredible.
Yeah.
And the other big deck boogeyman that has got hit was Rimewyrm's Bite. This was a deck I much maligned. I've tempered that belief on, but there were still a few cards here that I think really deserved a hit for the negative play experience scenarios that they could create.
Yeah. I mean, I think the first and foremost, and the one that I think everyone expected to change, and this probably changed even in the way that people expected, was puncturing ice shards. Which had a second caveat. So you pick somebody who is next to a hazard hex, deal 1 damage, and then your opponent can pick somebody it used to be had to pick somebody who's next to a hazard or a feature token, I think, and then that fighter would take 1 damage, but because they had to pick it, sometimes, often, I guess, or often enough to feel real bad, the Rimewyrm's Bite player would manage to position in such a way that the player would have to pick their own fighter, which just felt awful, especially then if it got reemerged, put back in the hand, and so you'd end up taking 4 ping damage onto your fighters in this course of 1 round from effectively just 2 gambits.
Right. That was the doomsday scenario, the real painful. And the skill issue or the skill play here is just simply whether or not the Rimewyrm Bite player can move their fighters away from the danger zones, the lava areas, and then play that card and double down on it if they had reemergence. And 4 ping from 2 card is nasty. And I feel like it's even just more salt in the wound that if I play it, you, I'm telling you, go ahead, hit yourself. Like, it just feels like a slap in the face.
Yeah.
And we saw that scenario, the 4 ping in one power phase, or what would that be like? Not it wasn't a power step, but yeah. I think deservedly now it is the Rimewyrm's Bite's opponent's choice whether or not they take that ping on themselves. Now the Rimewyrm's Bite player is incentivized to set it up so that they won't be able to be chosen by their opponent to get the ping. Mm-hmm. And so they're effectively going to just ping the opponent twice in that Doomsday scenario.
Yeah.
And the Rimewyrm's Bite opponent could choose to ping themselves only if it benefits them in their game plan.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it was, before you were rewarding the Rimewyrm's Bite player for positioning well, but you could like just twist yourself into a pretzel trying to avoid getting this double ping off on you. And it took so little for them to set it back up sometimes. Like, I have a push, or I'm going to drive back, and all of a sudden you're right back in it. And it was just so demoralizing. So, and it feels in line with, some of the other things. Like a lot of that Rimewyrm's Bite deck is really kind of scorched earth. We don't see it all that much, but here it comes. It was like an entire territory, and Brief Emergence is definitely like they're the opponent who had it played on them has the option of pinging back or not. So
And this brings it back in line with that like scorched earth, where the ping feels less bad if the Rimewyrm's Bite player is also getting it, and but Rimewyrm's Bite also has its own counter to it, like with Boots of Warding, in order to deny that ping. And so the Rimewyrm's Bite has to twist themselves into more of a pretzel to avoid their own scorched earth, but they are generating the ping against the opponent, so they should have to incur some cost or some strategy in that, rather than just play card and boom. So I like this change. It brings it more in line with the Rimewyrm's Bite of like, the worms aren't completely at my disposal to harm you. I think a good change.
I agree. And then the other one, which I didn't see coming, but also makes sense to me, is the right bait got changed. It used to be just a ping on the just a 1 damage to the opposing fighter if they were adjacent to one of your fighters, and it also had like a staggered caveat. Now both fighters take damage.
Yeah, so previously it was a ping for you and we both get staggered. Now it's we both get pinged and we both get staggered.
I guess I didn't remember it was both get staggered. That thing has some caveats about like, are you next to a hazard hex or something like that? If either fighter is next to it,
if either chosen fighter is within 1 hex of a hazard hex, stagger each fighter.
Yeah, I think before it could be just the one, but stagger. It used to be just the chosen enemy fighter. So
oh my god, so it was a ping and a stagger chosen enemy fighter, and then it's
I didn't have the because people are avoiding hazard hexes in general when you're playing against them, so that didn't pop off quite as often. But now the double stagger is fairly relevant, or potentially relevant, depending on what's out there for hazard hexes. I think counterplays often still really limit what's out there for cover, snare, and lethal, and then go from there.
Yeah. So again, more scorched earth brought in line. The Rimewyrm's Bite has to weigh the costs. I like that.
Yeah, and it's a crazy good ping. Was a crazy good ping, and now it's perfectly fine. There's some counterplay with their own, like you said, in faction things where they could, apply heal right after if they're doing inured to hardship, or they could put tough enough. And I think the important distinction here is deal 1 damage to each fighter. That for some reason that wording means that it's still okay to play, even if one of them can't take it.
Like if they have mitigation. Yeah.
If it said if it said deal 1 damage to the opposing fighter, deal 1 damage to the friendly fighter, like that, then it's fine. Or then it would be bricked if you had your own like protection, or if either fighter was protected from it for some reason. But
right.
for some reason they've made a distinction that says when you say each, you just do as much as you can. So
Yeah.
Unexpected, but happy that it continues on theme, on brand for that deck now.
Yeah. And then kind of a general questions answered about domains being discarded for Rimewyrm's Bite. There was a couple that were like labeled as domain, and then they would immediately go away rather than sit out and linger. So
puncturing ice shards specifically. Yeah. And people were like, well, what exactly does discard mean? Does it like when it's, when it stops persisting? Is that it? Is it if I discard it straight out of my hand? Like, does that count as discarding? Like, there was a lot of confusion about how, and there's an objective and an upgrade. I think that specifically were more than one
Master of
upgrade.
Disasters, right?
Yeah. That they were particularly interested in what exactly it meant for a thing to be discarded or not. So,
So as a recent user of the Rimewyrm's Bite with your Thriceful Discord this weekend, how do we feel about the changes? Do you like them? Do you feel like the deck is, do you feel like, how do you feel?
I think it's good and appropriate in all those. I think of any I don't want to be as broad a statement as this, but like of many of the possible warbands that might be taking it, I think that the Thricefold kind of get off. They have a little more synergy with the self damage here. With Fueled by Pain being a surge if they're all damaged, and Epitome or Triumph of Carnality, I think is the other one. So there's a couple bits and pieces in there that they're like, we actually kind of don't mind being pinged. And what I like is it just presents the Rimewyrm's Bite player with a few harder choices of like, okay, like I have some penalties for these like strong plays. Like how do I protect against it? Do I have to wait on that until I manage to slap down some of those protection upgrades or not? So I think they're appropriate. And I think those strong decks will be still quite strong and just maybe have a little shaved off the top there.
Yeah. Did you find yourself having the puncturing ice shards reemergence scenario pop off frequently?
I don't include reemergence in my deck. I only have the one or two cards that it would apply to, and so if those cards come out of order, then reemergence is a dead card. I did get it done to me by Sirenized Razors, and it felt bad.
I heard that our Sirenite player used that combo quite often. He said about half of his games.
Yeah, no, I believe it. That's one of the more effective ones to pull. So
yeah. So then the other deck or companion deck to Rimewyrm's Bite was the Hungering Parasite. And I think a lot of the changes here was mainly about how the Bane works when it's like, does it go away completely? Is there a way to tame the parasite or trap the parasite? So a couple ways of doing that would be, I think we talked about this recently in our counterplay episode, is like rhyme locking the Bane, whether or not it is, because then now it gains the rhyme locked keyword, and now when it breaks and goes back into your discard and then comes back out, it will have rhyme locked again. But if it's killed while frozen, it is locked within your deck. It is stuck there because it doesn't continue to accumulate thaw counters, and it doesn't lose the rhyme lock keyword. So it can be frozen within the glacier and trapped for all time of the game.
Thematically, I think that's cool. I guess the other ways that we came up with is that, or not we specifically, but that we were mentioned were the revealed aspect, pulling it out of off a fighter if you give the parasite to a Maskborn, a Malevolent Masks player, they can pick it up into their hand to take it out of play, and then Perfect Blade is a way to throw it down and then kill that owner while the person is so obsessed with their cool sword that they don't realize that they have a parasite attached to them.
Right. So
that
those are
can also
two
be
different
going.
ways of essentially making other, or the perfect blade being all other upgrades are irrelevant and don't function until this perfect blade is gotten rid of, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And the revealed aspect of is a unique way of getting it into your own hand, and then you're just treating it like a normal upgrade, and it takes it out of the plot cards scenarios, basically. Correct?
Yeah, I think I was talking to Skylar about this, where I was like, um, "Hey, I think Hungering Parasite's pretty happy with this," and he's like, "Well, look at all these different ways that that these ways where the parasite can be shut off." And I was like, "Yeah, I guess I like this is one of those FAQ erratas where like that all played out as I assumed it already worked, you know."
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I was like, it doesn't feel like a nerf to me because I thought that's how it already was. But if you were playing where like these were not, this is not how this worked, then yeah, this feels like a big change.
Yeah, and it definitely is somewhat of a nerf, because it is saying like the parasite can be turned off in these ways, but it isn't too bad because it's all telegraphed. Like, it's all should be understood by the Rhymelock player that these are the risks. You should know which decks. So going up against Striceful Discord, going up against any Malevolent Mask decks, going up against any Rhymelock decks.
Yeah, they I mean, the one that they can't really do a whole lot about is is specifically if they're going into Rhymelock Relics. You're just like, well, if you got it, you got it, and if you roll your 2/3
Yeah.
chance, and then at that point, it's like, can I keep this guy alive long enough for it to thaw out, and so I got it back online or not? So,
But otherwise, no errata to Bane cards, so that's kind of nice that things are working as intended.
Yeah, they hit the frenetic efforts early, which made sense. Yeah. And then I think the one I was a little surprised not to see anything was the Malefic Siphon, which is a shockingly good card for a range 3 ping with no restrictions other than is it near the parasite, and wrapped up with a heal is like a really, really powerful effect. And given some of the other ping hits they did, I was a little surprised to see that not hit, but I wasn't like, I can't believe they didn't do this. I was like, oh, I wouldn't have been shocked if they had decided that they were going to do something about that. But
I generally feel like that kind of a card is so strong and should be super reserved. And I think in this case, because the Bane can ping its own host, that is wise, because it's a mitigating circumstance to that. So you really have to be making sure that the Bane is only pinging adjacent enemy fighters to where this card is really fully felt. Otherwise, you're kind of mitigating your own loss in that and your own drawbacks. So while a very powerful ability, I don't love these kinds of cards, because especially if you have one in faction, like Lady Hero's Mournflight, having 2 in the deck is but a powerful ability, but there is a drawback built within the deck. And then moving on to Rhymelock Relics, my practice deck of choice, a clarification on Gelid Cyclone's timing and whether or not this can score defrosted. So previously, I'd kind of gone back and forth on this. I assumed that when Gelid Cyclone thawed, revealed, and the fighter teleported onto a objective token, that they could score defrosted. I had some debate with some people, and I started playing it as though that doesn't work because it reveals and then they go on to the objective token.
Yeah.
So I thought that made sense. No, defrosted doesn't work here. Apparently it does.
Yeah.
So I was playing on a hard mode, and yay, life got a little easier. So buff for me. Yay.
Yeah, that's one of those changes. Like, I'm just like, I mean, it seems fine, and I guess I didn't necessarily read it that way, and I don't totally follow the.
Yeah,
I don't like. It's one of those things where like you gotta stare. You know what are the magic image things where you kind of let your eyes glaze over a little bit when you're staring at it, and like, oh, now I can see the sailboat in the middle of this.
It was there the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. So like that's the same with this kind of wording where I'm like, if I can occasionally get my brain to click over and be like, okay, yeah, I get it. And then sometimes I'll lose concentration, be like, no, I don't totally understand why, but it doesn't matter. It's fine. And it's clear how it works now. And that's cool. Yep. I like that card anyway.
And then again, kind of continuing from what we were talking about with the Parasite, in the sense that Rhyme Locked and or dying or removing upgrades, the card will continue to have Rhyme Locked if it is given the Rhyme Lock keyword through either the Frostbite upgrade or the what was the ploy? Sudden Freeze, or
you're talking about the
Rhyme Locked ploy to freeze a upgrade.
Is it Frozen Solid?
Frozen Solid. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
That card never seems to work. It's a 66% chance, but it never works for me.
I've definitely popped it off a couple times, and I haven't played that deck all that often.
So basically just confirming how Rhyme Locked works when applied to non-Rhyme Locked upgrades already. I think both a buff, small buff in ways. So nice.
Yeah. Yep.
And I don't think entirely unwarranted or
no, it seems fine. I'm happy to see any bumps to that deck because it's the one that is keeping hold objective any chance of having relevancy right now, by and large. So yeah, thumbs up to that.
And speaking of holding or standing on objectives, Zandara's got a small buff here. The clarification that when the warband does the exhume, where they raise a zombie back from the dead, so they shift a feature token out from under a zombie, and then they can either pull an upgrade from their deck, or they can respawn a zombie. And this is saying that zombie can be placed on the feature token that was just shuffled out from underneath the other zombie. So basically a buff in the sense that they can still have the action economy of having a zombie already on a feature token when they just lost that in order to do this action.
Yeah, and it helps them, just kind of chain them together. Like, hey, I'm going to grave break this, and then this actually gives some options like, okay, I'm going to grave break, I'm going to set this here, I'll put a zombie on it. Now they're inspired. Now they may be able to make an inspired attack instead of having to walk onto it. So like it, really, opens up some options. It's pretty clearly to me that the wording as it is, it's not how you would expect it to work, but that's fine. And I don't think it's so powerful that like, oh my God, Zandara top of the meta right now.
No, they are a strong deck. We did see them win first place at the Alberta Classic in Calgary that Skylar and I went to, and G did some amazing things with them. I didn't get a chance to play against him, but I heard it was just masterful. But that still requires a lot of skill to run that deck. So I don't think, I don't think this is massively game breaking.
Right.
But every little inch forward makes what Zandara can do that much more impressive.
Totally.
Speaking of another minor buff to, I think, a warband that is being slept on, and I continue to sleep on them because I am still a little butthurt. Loon Court got a FAQ to how dub works, and if the Loon Court player scores 2 or more surges in a single surge step, can I use dub twice, or is it once per surge step? The FAQ there being that yes, you get 2 dub for each surge card scored.
Yeah.
So again, this is just my own personal beef, but I was so disappointed with Loon Court. I put a lot of work into converting them, and now they just get buff after buff after buff. And this is a small one, but I'm just like, no, I'm not ready to go back yet. But somebody else is probably giddy and is going to blindside people with it. I should look back at it. But cool. I mean, more inspired. This is good.
This is not relevant to this, well, I mean, it's not relevant to our main topic, but I've been catching up on some of the Path to Glory I fell behind, and they've actually stepped up to like that weekly release schedule, which is cool. Yeah. But George has mentioned a couple times on there how he thinks, I'm paraphrasing here, I may not have it totally correct, but like the Loon Court might be a stronger warband if they just had their main 4, so Skolko and Pronk or whatever, the catapult one, the boss, the Squig Rider, and Chomp and Snark or whatever it is. I was like, oh, that's really interesting to think about. Like the other three guys are just kind of like, here's some extra glory for the opponent. They can't really do much, and they're not very efficient to activate. Specifically because that warband doesn't have the activation efficiency tricks that some other horde warbands often do.
That is interesting. You always think of goblins as more of a swarm, especially the Warhammer goblins. But I was thinking, like, when they first came out, I'm just like, they're not movement shenanigan enough like I'm used to with Zarbags. And so then you have a bunch of fighters that aren't defensive enough either. And so I'm like, so they're just Zarbags without the mobility. And I'm like, they're just going to get got. But I had thought, I was like, it'd be so cool if they leaned into these are armored up little tiny targets. And like, if they were really defensive, I kind of like that idea of a, 5 or 4 fighter armored up grot thing. But I feel like we'd have to see a Cities of Sigmar version before we saw that applied to grots, but I love the idea. I mean, it's how I converted my Looncore was essentially that Bretonnian Knights, but weird and goblin wacky. Yeah, that's interesting. I really should look at them again. I just, I've been having a lot of fun with the new kits.
Yeah, man, there's so many war bands that I just, like I'm focusing on working with Thricefold since that's what I'm bringing to Nova. But I was like, I've really never spent time with Nara Spirit Pack. I really want to check out the, I know they're not for everybody, but I just like the goofy shenanigans you can do with Brethren of the Bolt. That seems super interesting. Any war band, and there's tons of them that are doing things that nobody else does. I was looking at, the what are the Raiders? Who are the original Sea Elves?
Elethane Soul Raid.
Elethane Soul Raid. I was like, oh man, I think that'd be super fun. And so it is. Every time I kind of look through the roster of war bands, I'm like, God, I wish I had a pocket dimension to spend like 3 weeks just deep diving this war band and then this war band and this war band. So,
I feel like that's like early seasons Davy talking, where you had the time to indulge in each. But I find myself in like 40K being like, man, that is so cool. But Chaos is for me. Chaos is where it's at. I love how Black Templars look, but I'm just not gonna. That's for somebody else. That is somebody else can enjoy that and love it as much as I love Chaos. And kind of like I want to see somebody champion that. It's I like Slaves to Darkness and Chaos and Kagras Ravagers, but Alex is running with that, and it's like it's cool that there's so many warbands to choose from, that so many people could champion them. And it's like, it's trying to do my own thing and knuckle down on one thing. Like, you got Wellner with Exiled Dead doing amazing things, and it's like, that is so cool. But like, I'm not as drawn to that, so it's really cool, and I can cheer him on. Where other things, like I wish I could do what you're doing with Thricefold Discord, but I just didn't have it in me to go that distance.
I mean, you talk like Wellner's a great example. That is a sight to behold when he, when he's doing that. He again, we'll talk about it some when we talk about Q3, but I have not played him in quite a while. And then when I played him once in League, got an idea of what he was running with his deck, and then I kind of built it at home to let Emmett try it out, just so he could play against something other than Thricefold. And I was playing. I was like, "Wow, Wellner really made this look easy, but this is not like." I am flailing. I am about to get like my important fighters killed. Like I don't know why I'm so bad at this right now.
I wish that I could do the same with Zarbags, because like, short of Exiled Dead, I feel like Zarbags are the other most like movie and big brain, like jumping around and doing all that. But the matchup does not go well for me, because he knows exactly where I want to be, and it's on objectives, and so he just got to put the zombies right there ready for the buffet of goblins, and it's not it's not an impressive showing for me. And it's just like, man, I wish I could like get the sort of kudos and credibility for my Zarbag plays, but man, to dodge. I miss ye.
Yeah.
Woe is me is over. All right. Well, I think that covers the main changes that we're seeing. There's a laundry list of janitorial, like designers' commentary and questions answered. A lot of that having to do with the Rhyme Locked and the Bane. Two unique mechanics that we've not seen before. So naturally, people have a lot of questions on that. But otherwise, I think it's a good change. I'm seeing a lot of positive discourse on the Discords. So, yeah, I think that wraps it for us. Davey, any last comments you got?
No, I think this is a real solid quality of life change, and I'm glad it arrived. And I think it just makes clear some of the complicated interactions as they get kind of crazier and crazier with some of their plot cards and rivals decks, and trims off some of the most feel bad interactions. So those are all super positive things.
Yeah, and I will say our self-promotion, our Q3 finals event featured Breakneck Slaughter versus Rimewyrm's Bite, and so that would be an excellent video to go and watch and sample the old ways that are now changed going into Nova and being able to see how these changes are put into practice. So go check out our Q3 finals match. Check out all of them, all of the rounds, but that match in particular was a nail biter. And I'll be cheering you guys on as you mosey to Nova and get to hang out with the Battle Mallet guys. I'm so jealous. We also had Jake, who rocks the squid logo on the Discords. He ran his Goonhammer event, and he came out for our Q3 event. Again, shout out to him. He was a great guest, very gracious, and he won our best sport. And he will see you guys at Nova, and it sounds like he's going to be coming out to Adepticon too. So I want to put the pressure on Underworlds Underground and Battle Mallet to follow suit and come and join us for Adepticon 25 in Milwaukee.
Yeah. Yeah, that was well said. Let's I'm gonna sound, if I say well said, I sound exactly like Path to Glory. Those guys must say that like they must say it like 30 times an episode.
So instead of well said, we'll just say good words. And
you can, good words say.
And you can give us the good words at What the Hexcast on X, formerly Twitter. And you can email us the good words at whatthehexcast@gmail.com. Check out all our content at themortalrealms.com, where our podcast channel and network are hosted. Coming up, new release when? Give us that good word.
Yeah. Hopefully Nova will let us know something about that. That'd be good.
I'm excited. It's got to be. Last time Battle Mallet blew our minds with we were making predictions in line, and it absolutely astounded Skylar and I when one of them got it, and it was I'm so envious. But wife's got to have her birthday, so fair trade.
Good choices.
Davey, hit me with that Flavitex quiz, would you?
Yeah, I usually have a whole bunch of caveats about how you're unlikely to get this or anything. You might actually get this one here. Obviously themes in mind. This one is a quote attributed to Ephelum the Unknowable. All change is painful, no matter how small. Imagine then change so great it can tear you apart. This is a objective, and it's a surge.
Objective surge, and I assume it's got to be from one of these decks that is changed. No. It's not from Ephelum, is it?
It is from Ephelum.
Hit me again with the quote.
Let's see. All change is painful, no matter how small. Imagine then change so great it can tear you apart. And I think it's Kindlefinger kind of dancing on the front here, looking very large.
Changer of Ways.
It's a good guess, but it is Violent Change.
Okay.
And recommended listening I do have for you. This is from the Beastie Boys, and it's called The Update.
Okay. Nice. All right. That's it for us at What the Hex. I've been Brian.
And I've been Davy.
Looks like you got a couple other community shout outs, or?
No, those are from the last ep.
Fair enough. All right. Some show note live. All right.